beyond the veil. Darkness. No, not darkness. A void. A place where even shadows feared to linger too long. The shade pressed forward, deeper into the hushed abyss. It felt the presence before it heard it, not pursuit. No, convergence. The others were drawing near. He had not lost them. They had found him. He turned. 2 pinpoints of blue flared in the gloom, cold and luminous, severing the black with their unnatural gleam. It was the only mark that set him apart from the rest. He, the blue-eyed among red-eyed shades. They were kin in form, vague, formless things of smoke and silence, but not in essence. Where they were many, he was one. Where they merged, he stood out. Where they obeyed, he resisted. Perhaps that was his crime. The red-eyed host fanned outward, slow and deliberate, forming a silent crescent around him. Their presence flooded the space, a pressure felt more than seen, like the weight of an invisible tide. But he did not flee. His shadowed feet sank into the parched, lifeless soil. He stood alone, rooted not in fear, but in defiance. A twitch of his wrist, subtle as a breath, triggered a pulse of blue flame. It burst forth from his palm, coiling outward, elongating into a spectral whip, fluid and sinuous, as though it bore a mind of its own. The red-eyed shades did not wait. They surged. Not with fury, but with eerie unity, an avalanche of limbs forged in flickering flame, their bodies only vaguely shaped, like phantoms formed from coals and ash. Their fire limbs slithered through the darkness, trailing sparks, writhing like serpents as they reached for him. The blue-eyed did not wait. His left whip cracked, a streak of cobalt light through the stillness. It sliced one shade clean through, and the red-eyed form dispersed into wisps of smoke, unraveling into the black. Another lash, another fallen. But there were too many. They closed in from all sides. He shifted, pivoting low to avoid a downward strike, then spun wide, dragging the whip in an arcing path behind him. The burning limb of a shade grazed his back, his form convulsed as part of his essence hissed away, torn and scorched. He stumbled, but did not fall. A hiss escaped him, soundless but charged with intent. He clenched his right fist, and a second pulse of blue erupted. A twin whip surged forth from his opposite palm, thinner than the first, but no less alive. It crackled and snapped, its energy wild and impatient. Now, wielding two, he became a whirlwind. He spun, graceful, precise, brutal. Blue arcs crossed through the gloom in wide crescents, carving radiant wounds into the encroaching mass. Shades burst apart like dying stars. Fire limbs were severed mid-lash, falling onto the ground where they writhed briefly before fading. But duality came at a cost. With two whips alight, the shadow within him grew thinner. Each motion drained him, each strike demanded more from his core. His steps slowed, his movements less fluid, burdened by the delicate balance he now bore. Still he fought. He weaved between lashes of flame, ducking low, vaulting high, his body a silhouette of motion against the crimson flashes. One of the red eyes struck true. A searing limb plunged through his right flank. His form buckled, his right whip flickering. But he held fast, spinning inward to cleave the attacker in two. Time bled away. There was no counting, no measure. Only the soundless screams of unraveling shadows, the pain from scorching claws, the feel of ash beneath his feet, kicking up with every turn. He could no longer tell if he was winning or merely surviving. And then, stillness. The last of them fell in a flicker of dying embers, its form severed mid-pounce, vanishing into the black like a dream swallowed by morning. Silence. He stood alone. What remained of him was ragged, torn shadow, scorched edges, limbs trembling from exertion. The twin whips flickered and then dissolved, their energy spent. He staggered once, catching himself on a knee, breathless in a world without air. Then, nothing. Not the quiet of peace, but of absence. No light, no movement. Just the void, eternal and absolute. And from that stillness, something stirred. A pair of colossal eyes opened before him, elongated ovals, burning orange without iris or soul. They hovered in the dark like gateways to a place beyond knowing. No face, no body, only eyes. And then, a voice, neither echo nor sound. It emanated from the void itself, flat, mechanical, without warmth or malice. Subject 84, J9-D. You have to choose how this ends. And pressed on, knowing that there will be no response. One of your choices is to remain here, the voice intoned, unhurried and cold, and guard the veil from those who seek to breach it. The blue-eyed shadow flickered. A ripple passed through its formless frame, a disturbance not of body, but of thought. A memory surfaced, distant, distorted, like light refracted through black water. He had come to trespass, to breach the veil. He did not remember why, only that he must, that it was the sole purpose stitched into his being. The voice continued, unmoved by the tremor in his shape. The other choice is to return to the pits and meld with your kin, to face the consequences of your separation. The shade recoiled as if struck. No. Not that. Anything but that. He had fled the pits, crawled from them, torn and unmade, clawing through eternity to escape. To return was unthinkable. To return was to surrender. A silence stretched, horribly still. Then the voice spoke once more, as dry and impartial as before. The last choice is to pass the veil. The shadow froze. Pass the veil? That was the reason he had fought. That was the reason he had bled smoke and fire. That was the reason his limbs still trembled. And now they would allow it. The orange eyes watched, unblinking, as if peering into the storm of fractured will within him, as if they knew. It is not what you expect, the voice said, answering the thought before it formed. It never is. A tremor ran through the shadow, not of fear, but something deeper. Longing, hunger, regret. And then, from within the dark mass, the blue eyes burned bright, brighter than before. Volumetric light burst outward from their centers, forming halos in the dark. The shade's mouth, if it had one, trembled with sound. Words, broken and primitive, clawed their way out of silence. Pass the veil. The choice is made, said the voice. Face your fate. The massive orange eyes shut. Darkness fell, and behind them, light. A star ignited where nothing had been. It flared like a sun, birthing itself from nothing, growing, pulsing, becoming all. The shadow was drawn forward, not pulled, not forced, welcomed. The light consumed him, and he did not resist. He wanted this, had always wanted it, even if he did not know why. And then reality shattered. The world struck him like a fist. Sound, color, weight, pain, blue sky flooded his vision, too vivid, too vast, marbled with soft white clouds drifting in summer stillness. But it was wrong. A sickened worry rose in his gut, thick and hot. Then he remembered the screech of tires, the spin, the crash, the windshield exploding into diamonds of glass. He had flown, had felt the nothingness beneath him, and then asphalt. He lay twisted, limbs splayed in broken directions. He tried to move, couldn't. Only his head obeyed, turning slowly, agonizingly on ruined vertebrae. And there, just beyond the shards and smoke, his wife, his children, scattered, still, red. The world froze. His scream tore through the air, rising from a throat barely whole. Tears burst from his eyes, not of sorrow, of obliteration. He wept until he could no longer draw breath. He screamed until silence overtook the sound. Figures appeared, white uniforms, gloves, voices muffled beneath sterile masks. Hands lifted his body onto a stretcher. A voice, carefully modulated, spoke beside his shattered form. "You will live," it said. A doctor, calm, trained to soothe. But in his eyes, the shadow, the man, knew the truth. It was a fate worse than death.